On 6 January 2021, hundreds of thousands of patriots, citizens, and Trump supporters descended onto the mall in Washington, D.C. to either attend the Trump rally announced for that morning, to seek their right of redress before the assembled Congress, or both. What followed can best be described as a peaceful gathering amid an almost non-existent police or security presence, later ruined by fools, false flag operators, and a few dozen criminal actors. The intentional or negligent, you decide, near total absence or at least wildly insufficient presence of adequate security after the Capitol Police issued multiple permits for a gathering at the Capitol building contributed heavily to a false narrative of an armed insurrection at the nation's capital. The narrative, spewed by the Speaker of the House, who coincidentally is the person in charge of security at the Capitol, the fake stream media, and members of the Democratic and Republican parties with no regard for reality, the nation's reputation, or public safety, did grievous harm to the United States. The same corrupt actors who sat silent or actively encouraged an actual insurrection across the United States in the summer of 2020 colluded to parrot a fraudulent narrative of January 6, 2021, namely that this was an insurrection to overthrow the U.S. government. Now, the comical and ludicrous notion that a mob with no firearms, no Molotov cocktails, no armed force whatsoever intended to overthrow the government is as moronic as the notion that Joe Biden is popular. Unlike the horrific summer of violence, looting, murder, and intimidation by political leftists, no buildings were burned, no statues toppled, no guns fired, at least by protesters, no fires lit, no murders committed. Even if the presence of milling protesters outside the Capitol building had somehow magically forced a cowardly Congress to capitulate, to whom would they have surrendered? What of the 1.5 million active duty military, 3,800 D.C. National Guardsmen, or 750,000 law enforcement officers around the country? And what about the executive and the judicial branches, separate from the legislative branch? These malicious actors pretend that disrupting an official proceeding could topple the leviathan that is the U.S. government. The mere notion that the actions of a few dozen criminal trespassers could overthrow the government is either a suggestion devoid of reality, a statement of a poorly informed individual, or the desperate action of an illegitimate political actor seeking to distract from their own behavior. In November of 2020, in a highly controversial result, former Senator Joe Biden defeated sitting President Donald Trump. This came despite Trump setting a record for the most ever votes for an incumbent president, nearly 75 million, and bucking the trend by dramatically increasing his previous vote total by over 12 million additional votes from 2016. Despite his record-setting performance, state after state certified victories for his opponent, a known plagiarist and an incoherent rambler with virtually nothing to show for nearly 5 decades in elected office, save mandatory sentences for drug offenders that eviscerated the Black community in the 1990s. Not exactly something that you want to put on your CV. Trump also bucked the trend among politicians in delivering on his campaign promises, wiping out illegal executive orders and government regulations that made America weak, focusing on poverty in the Black community, getting freeloading NATO members to get skin in the game, freeing American companies to conduct business, resurrecting hope after the insulting tenure of Obama, establishing order on our southern border, ending North Korean acts of war against Japan, exposing communist China, restoring peace in the Middle East, and much more. Despite his accomplishments, 4 years of a fraudulent Russia collusion investigation, propaganda from the Democratic leadership, connivance with a corrupt press and tech giants that fueled fake news while censoring rational commentary, and Hillary Clinton's endless whining about Macedonian server farms, Trump, fresh from overcoming the fraudulent political character assassination of a show trial on Ukraine, was poised to run away with the re-election. But the perfect storm of pandemic hysteria and a constant barrage of fake news and lies about Trump, combined with his own arrogance and lack of attention to the 300+ lawsuits that Democrats used to subvert voting in the 50 individual states, set the stage for a November loss that has torn asunder the voting public. Trump's failure to address the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which allowed social media tech titans to survive, flourish, and ultimately use the law against citizens to censor, played a major role in his unseating. Had he pushed the Republican majority in both houses back in 2017, things may have played out differently. But reining in the abusive tech titans did not become important to Trump until it was far too late. When events unfolded on January 6, 2021, the corrupt media did not even bother to show up. They were nowhere to be seen. They didn't even cover the events. But the moment a few dozen criminals broke into a largely undefended Capitol building, suddenly there was an insurrection afoot. Never mind the previous 4.5 hours of peaceful, lawful assembly by hundreds of thousands of Americans. Now they were suddenly all evil, treasonous criminals. Of course, this is pure fiction. What happened on that day was a travesty and an assault on the truth and a rewriting of contemporary history, even as it unfolded. Of course, the victors write the histories, even if they cheat to win. Not only have the fake stream media insulted tens of millions of Americans, inflicted untold damage on our national reputation, and endlessly lied about those events, but they also contributed to the embarrassing military occupation of our nation's capital by repeating the lies of the uniparty cabal. That's the Democrats, including Republicans in Congress, and harmed genuine patriots who serve the nation and those who've done so honorably throughout their lives. January 6, 2021 was a lawful assembly interrupted by opportunists in the crowd, exploited by members of Congress, the media, and others for whom political victory trumps all. No pun intended there, folks. The visceral hatred of Donald Trump was exposed for all cogent, honest observers to see that day, as the media, members of Congress, and even Twitter all worked in concert to weave a lie that much of the planet fell for and still believes to be true. Millions also thought that Stalin and Mao were great and magnanimous leaders. Needless to say, reports of their greatness were fairy tales too.